I gave ChatGPT $2,000 and one job. Build me the best gaming PC you can, monitor and peripherals included. Then I built my own for the exact same $2,000, using the exact same current prices, and we're going to find out which one actually deserves to sit on a desk. Here's the twist I didn't see coming. ChatGPT didn't pick a fast new CPU. It picked one that's years old, on a socket AMD's basically done supporting. And the reason why is honestly one of the better pieces of reasoning I've gotten out of an AI on this whole project. Quick rules so you know this isn't rigged. Same $2,000 cap. Same requirement, full tower monitor, keyboard, mouse, headset. Same day's pricing. I locked my build before I ever saw what ChatGPT came back with, and neither list gets touched after the fact. Whatever's here is what's here. ChatGPT actually showed its work this time. It spent about 16 minutes searching retailer pages, checking stock, even trying to verify shipping to my zip code. And partway through, it ran into a real problem. 32GB DDR5 kits, the kind you'd want for a modern AM5 platform, were pricing around $400 to $480. That's almost a quarter of the entire budget on memory alone. So it made a call. Drop AM5. Drop DDR5. Go back to AM4 and DDR4, save well over $100 on the platform, and put nearly all of that savings into the graphics card instead. That's how you end up with a Ryzen 7 5800 XT, an older 8-core chip, next to a genuinely high-end Radeon RX 9070 XT. My build didn't run into that problem, because I locked my CPU, motherboard, and RAM in as one bundle from Micro Center. A Ryzen 7 9700X, a proper AM5 board, and 32 gigs of DDR5 6000, all for $670. Same GPU tier ChatGPT landed on too, a Radeon RX 9070 XT, just from Power Color instead of Gigabyte. So here's where it gets interesting, because on paper, these two graphics cards are nearly identical. Same chip, same 16 gigs of VRAM. The real difference is that Gigabyte's card ships factory overclocked, a couple hundred megahertz higher than Power Color's reference clocks. That's a real advantage, but a small one. It's not a different class of card. The CPU is where things actually split. My 9700X is built on AMD's newest architecture. ChatGPT's 5800 XT is generations behind it. In CPU-heavy benchmarks, a chip from the 9700X's generation has shown roughly a 20 to 30% lead over 5800 XT class silicon in games that actually lean on the processor. That gap mostly disappears once you're purely GPU limited, which happens a lot at 1440p, but it doesn't disappear in everything. Rainbow Six Siege, at high refresh, city sims, populated open worlds, that's exactly where a newer, faster CPU keeps paying off. And it's not just the chip itself. My RAM runs DDR5 at 6,000 megatransfers a second. ChatGPT's runs DDR4 at 3,200. That's not a small speed difference, that's an entire memory generation. I actually compared this against published benchmark data from a handful of specific games to estimate where the gap should show up and where it probably won't. In Rainbow Six Siege at high refresh rates, my build should pull ahead. That's exactly the kind of CPU-bound competitive scenario where the newer platform matters most. In Forza Horizon 6, it should be close, with maybe a slight edge to ChatGPT's factory overclocked card once you're purely GPU limited. Black Myth, Wukong should be close to a wash. Both cards use the same silicon, and that game leans hard on the GPU. Cyberpunk 2077 should mostly come down to the GPU too, though my extra CPU headroom may help in the busier city scenes. And Kingdom Come, Deliverance II, which simulates a genuinely stupid number of NPCs at once, should favor my build again. So the estimate isn't that one build sweeps every category. It's closer to this. GPU-bound games should be basically tied, while CPU-bound games should favor mine. There's also a detail buried in ChatGPT's own process that I have to give it credit for. It flagged that it couldn't fully verify checkout-level shipping to my zip code, so it labeled its own total as projected rather than confirmed, and it left about $31 of headroom specifically in case shipping came back non-zero. It even worked out 2 backup options in case something changed: a slightly better mouse for $16 more, or dropping down to the non-XD version of the same graphics card to free up $140. That's a more careful process than I expected out of it. Now, ChatGPT's build isn't just an old CPU next to a good GPU. There's a real trade-off underneath it. AM4 is basically at the end of its road. If either of us wants to upgrade the processor down the line, my AM5 board still has real headroom ahead of it. ChatGPT's socket doesn't. Storage tells a similar story. ChatGPT's build has 1 terabyte. Mine has 2. Same drive class, same PCIe generation, but double the room for games, and 1 terabyte disappears fast once Windows and a handful of modern titles are installed. Where it gets genuinely close is the case and cooling. ChatGPT's case is listed as shipping with 4 fans out of the box. Mine includes fewer, but my CPU is rated at 65 watts, while the 5800 XD is rated at 105. So on paper, one build wins on included airflow, while the other should have less heat to move in the first place. Basically a wash. The monitors are a genuine toss-up too. ChatGPT picked a flat IPS panel. I ended up with a curved VA panel with a much higher contrast rating on paper. IPS is usually the safer pick for competitive games, because of how it handles motion and viewing angles. VA usually wins in darker, more cinematic games, because blacks actually look black. Neither of us has lab data on these exact panels, so I'm not going to pretend I know which one wins until somebody actually measures it. And then there's the peripherals, which is honestly where the gap opens up the most. The mice are actually a genuine tie. Independent testing rates both of them as excellent on click latency. ChatGPT's Logitech is lighter and smaller. Mine has more buttons and a bit more weight. That one really comes down to what your hand prefers, not which one is objectively better. But the keyboard it picked is a $12 membrane keyboard built for an office, with only 3 key rollover. Press more than a couple of gaming-relevant keys at once, and some of those presses just don't register. My keyboard uses Hall effect switches, adjustable actuation and full rollover, built specifically for gaming. That is not a close fight. The headsets are closer. Mine appears to have a slightly better reputation for consistent sound and comfort. ChatGPT's has a good microphone, but independent testing has flagged some noise isolation issues. That suggests a real edge, just not a huge one. So add it all up. The GPUs should be basically tied, with a small factory overclock advantage going to ChatGPT. Everything else, the CPU, the RAM, the storage, the upgrade path, and especially the keyboard, appears to tilt toward my build. My parts list totaled $1993.66 based on the prices available at the time. ChatGPT's projected list totaled $1832.60, so it left roughly $160 of the budget unused, and if that money had gone toward a better CPU platform instead of an older, cheaper one, this might have been a much closer fight. Based on the specifications, third-party benchmarks, and listed prices, my build looks like the stronger, complete setup for the same approximate budget. Not because ChatGPT built something bad, it genuinely didn't. That pricing pivot around DDR5 costs was smart, real reasoning, not a lucky guess. It just chose to protect the GPU at the expense of almost everything feeding into it, and that's a defensible strategy. It's just not the one I would have picked with the same amount of money on the table. The full proposed parts lists for both builds are linked below, with the prices I used for the comparison, so you can see what those budgets would have bought at the time. By the time you're watching this, some of those prices have probably already moved again. That's just where component pricing is right now, and honestly, it's part of why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Let me know in the comments which build you'd have actually bought, whether you'd have chased the GPU like ChatGPT did or protected the platform like I did, and I'll see you in the next one.